It's 2024, it's a new year, a fresh start, and a new opportunity to finally become that wonderful, consistent being that you've always wanted to be. In my experience as somebody with ADHD, there's only one thing that's consistent in our lives, and it's the degree to which we are inconsistent. Consistently inconsistent. That should be the tagline underneath ADHD. So how are you going to become it? I hear you ask as you have clicked on this video. You're not. You're not. And if that sounds a little bit depressing, I promise you it's not. But I have a visceral hatred of the word consistency. And if there's one thing you do this year, I think it should be to remove it from your vocabulary completely and to start actually working in ways that suit who you are as a consistently inconsistent person. And that's what I'm going to talk about in today's video. I'm going to talk through why I hate the word so much, why I don't think you should use the word at all, why that's extremely ironic given what I've been trying to do over the last week, and what you can do instead to actually start achieving the things that you want to achieve this year that don't require consistency. I just need to be more consistent is one of the top phrases that I see from people within the ADHD community and that I hear from my coaching clients. And I have to manage the emotional reaction that I have to that within myself because I just want to jump out and be like, you don't, I promise you don't. I mean, I understand why you do, and you kind of do, but I understand why you don't, and there's a way that we can figure this out, I promise you. Before you watch further, I want you to just take a moment to notice what happens in your mind and body when I say the word consistent. You just need to be more consistent. We all just need to be more consistent. Mine used to be shame, and now it's borderline rage, and I see that as positive progress. So let's just first of all start off by defining consistency with a good old regular dictionary. Consistency is always behaving or happening in a similar way, and there's regularity, steadiness, continuity. I understand if you take that definition on face value, why you might want to be more consistent coming into this year. And all of the advice that we get when it comes to goals is being consistent. When I was first self-employed and I was figuring out how to grow my business, how to grow YouTube, how to do community, all of that, it was all about consistency. You just need to post consistently. You need to show up consistently. Consistently taking small steps towards your goals rather than trying to bite off a huge big chunk at once and then burning yourself out because you took on too much. And accumulating progress over time. Words matter. It doesn't matter what a word means by technical definition if you don't feel good about it. And this is something that I'm so passionate about. I'm passionate about it with my coaching clients when they say, like, I just need to be more consistent. How do you actually feel? What is the energy around that word? Because if it comes from the same place that self-discipline does, and I will save that rant for a different video, it's not an encouraging motivational thing. Consistency as a word and being consistent might just mean regularly showing up, behaving in similar or the same ways, repeating them over time. But to me, the way that I feel the word consistency and just needing to be consistent is a representation of all the ways in which I feel like I have failed at just humaning and being a person and trying to just do basic things. I can't do it, but I should do it. So I keep trying to do it and I keep failing at it. And there's a whole lot of shame that comes with the word consistency. So that's why I think we should just remove it from our vocab completely this year. Use a different word instead. But to do that, I think we need to understand a little bit more about what it really means to be consistent or what we are trying to achieve through consistency. I'm going to do that first by talking about the alternatives because I was going to do this in a linear fashion, but then as I looked at it and it seemed to just connect in all a variety of ways, I was like, I don't know how this is going to line times, so I'm just going to talk and it will make sense. There are two other C's, conveniently. There are a lot of C words in this realm that I think are really good alternatives to being consistent with your goals, your intentions, whatever it is you want to call them this year. And it is commitments. There are things that I am 100% committed to, but if you looked at my efforts or my outputs, you might question that commitment, right? And this is where I think it's really important. You can be committed to something without it outwardly looking like you are showing up and doing it and being consistent. And so aiming for consistency doesn't actually allow for the fact that, like, every part of your heart, body, and soul can want to do something and you can be committed to it and you can be taking action to it, even if that's mentally, even if that's in planning, even if that's just finding clarity. But because it doesn't look like this specific output that you've outlined needs to happen for it to be consistent, it's like you've not bothered. So this year, I'm not setting goals for myself. I'm not setting metrics. I'll discuss that in another video. I'm not setting specific outcomes. I'm just setting commitments. YouTube, for example, I am committed to YouTube. It leaves it completely open as to what that looks like, but it's something that is important to me and that I'm going to take action towards. But commitment's all very well and good. Doesn't always translate to action, right? We know this. This is part of ADHD. You can have the best of intentions, but how do you translate that into action? And so that's why I'm pairing my commitments with creating conditions. And that's the second thing. What is more important for me and my quote unquote success, however you want to determine that, achieving the things that I want to achieve, is not what I produce or scheduling like, this is when I'm going to do this is when the outcome will happen here, this is how this is going to happen. I know that that ain't going to get me where I want to go. What is most important is creating the conditions that will make me productive, creating the conditions that will allow me to do the stuff. So, for example, I have a commitment to YouTube. The conditions that I need to create to make sure that I am showing up to that commitment is creating space in my day to create videos, going for walks and moving, because that's where I tend to get most of my inspiration for my videos. Ain't no content creation happen when I'm sitting down, apart from when I gotta record the stuff. It's accountability buddying, things like Flow Club that I've mentioned before, having somebody that I can check in on the actions that I've created. And it's going to things like my co-working space when I need to do editing, because it's much more likely that I'll sit down and focus on the editing when I'm in one context, i.e. a working one, whereas when I'm at home, there are a million other things that could distract me. Oh, by the way, separate but extremely related issue. That made it sound like it was a problem. Not a problem, a great thing. Related to this topic, Saturday the 27th of January, I will be hosting a session on goals and ADHD. It is part of a wider, big event called Goals And that I am doing with a bunch of other really amazing coaches and speakers. So I'll be running a session on goals on ADHD. I'll scroll through here. You can have a little look at what the page looks like. There are other topics such as goals and joy, goals and connection, goals and alignment, growth, well-being. It's all completely free. You sign up to the event, you can choose which individual sessions that you want to go to. So I will put the link into the description here, and I hope to see you there. I'll be doing more of an in-depth session, live talk about goals and ADHD, part knowledge sharing, part Q&A. Hope to see you there. Okay, so where were we? Consistency, get in the bin. Get in the bin. You need commitments, things that are important that you want to work towards. And then you need to create the conditions that will give you time, space, energy, concentration, productivity to do those things. Now, I had this conversation with myself, well, multiple times last year, but towards the end of this year, I wanted to do a video on it, but I also wanted to make it the basis of the way that I set goals this year, right? And so I'd have really clear intentions and commitments as I went into the start of this year, and I started work last Tuesday, and I had the whole week, and I knew exactly what my priorities were. And I just couldn't get in the zone. I could not get in the working zone. And I'm like, well, I've got my commitments. I know what it is that I need to do. I'm still struggling to get myself to do it. And I looked up at my calendar, so I have the 3 months ahead in a calendar there and everything that is my priority for the next 3 months. And I realised that I had defined my YouTube commitment as looking like posting a video every Sunday. And I thought, it's interesting how deep the consistency, whatever this is, runs, because I'm sat here telling you that I want to get rid of consistency, that the shame that is associated with the word for me is not helpful, that there are other ways that I can be productive and achieve my goals without consistency. And yet I'm still so tied to, but I have to post a video every Sunday, right? I know that the best work comes out of me when I am following my natural inspiration and whimsy and ideas. But that can be stressful and it can be uncertain because you don't know what you're going to get. And so you can't add structure around it. You've just got to go with the flow. But I know that forcing consistency on myself does not work. I know that there are so many different reasons why people with ADHD struggle with consistency. There's lots about planning, about organization, differing energy levels, differing concentration levels, different motivational interests, right? There are all of these reasons why consistency is hard for us. Also, just life, illness, emergencies, things getting in the middle of your day. Like, we have to be able to be flexible and adaptable. All of these things make consistency hard. For me, like I'm sure many of you, I know, and I'm realizing more and more, and this is something I want to kind of figure out a bit more this year, I have a huge issue with demand avoidance. So as soon as something becomes an obligation, The motivational lights switch off. I don't want to do it anymore. So I'm looking down the barrel of the next 3 months. I'm looking at every Sunday and the red dot on my calendar with all the videos that I need to create because I am committed to YouTube, which apparently looks like showing up every single week with a video. And I haven't done one yet because now I don't want to. I feel like consistency has this stronghold over me. And I think there's two reasons, in all honesty. One of them is just all of this like internalization of the idea that the only way that I will ever be successful is by being consistent, right? I'm still hanging on to that. And I've had loads of lovely comments from you in my comment section saying like, we don't care if you're not here every week. We don't care if it's the same time every week, right? And I believe that, and I tell people that because I also think it's important. Like one of my missions that I'm so passionate about is helping other people with ADHD see that they can create like happy and fulfilling and productive lives under their own rules, which is without consistency, right? But I'm still feeling like I have to be consistent. So I think part of it is just this deep ingrained thing that like that's the only way it can be done. But I also think there's a second thing, which is there's comfort in structure, there's comfort in the repetitiveness that consistency brings. But I already know that doesn't work for me. So there's a discomfort in saying if I'm committed and if I create the conditions to keep showing up, whatever that looks like, even if it's 4 days in a row one week and then not at all the next week, for want of a better phrase, inconsistently, I have to trust that the output of that will get me where I want to get to. And I think also we mix up consistency in terms of effort and consistency in terms of output. My effort is always inconsistent. That's the way ADHD operates in my life. I can't do the same thing every day. I can't do the same thing at the same time every week. Like, my effort is always inconsistent. But it doesn't mean that my output isn't inconsistent. The two things are related, and more often than not, if your efforts are inconsistent, your outputs are going to be inconsistent. But there's something in that for me that I'm trying to work out, that how can the outcome of what I'm doing be regular and be constant, even if the effort behind it wasn't formulaic and rigid and consistent. I feel like this has turned into some kind of intense, just like, I just feel intense about this. I feel intense about this. So here's what I'm going to do. Well, here's what I think we all should do. Decide what things you're committed to, and then focus your energy on creating the conditions to work towards that commitment, but disregard any expectation about what the consistency of that deliverable or output is. That's the bit I'm struggling with, but that's the bit that I am committing to this month. I am going to remove my stickers off my calendar that say that there will be a video every Sunday, and I am just going to be committed. And part of that for me and why I want to say it as a commitment is because I don't want novelty wearing off or a new shiny thing or something else that I'm more interested in distract me or make me make excuses for not following through on what I'm doing, right? So I'm saying that it's commitment, but I'll be committed to it and I'll be creating the conditions to create videos, but I am not putting any prescriptions, prescribed times, prescriptions. I'm not putting any, what I'm trying to say is I'm not being prescriptive. But prescriptions doesn't seem right. I'm not being prescriptive about what that looks like. And you know what? And we'll see. We'll review at the end of the month, right? And we'll see. But I suspect in the mindfuckery that is ADHD, what looks like consistency will appear in my life if I no longer enforce consistency on myself. I got a hunch about that one. Let's see. I already feel wibbly about it because I like a plan. I love a plan. There's nothing I love more than a plan. Don't follow the plan, but I love a plan. But this is still a plan. But it's loose. We're free flowing. We're going with it. We're seeing what happens. I think that's it. That's it. Hope to see you on the 27th of Jan. Let me know in the comments, what are you committing to this month? That was me being about to say year and then realising that is an absolutely insane amount of time, and month is all it needs to be. Shame is not our friends, folks. Don't give it space to play in our vocabulary. Because you don't want to start off feeling bad. Badness, no.